and then I'll show you what we'll be building. Okay. So yeah, so today's basic persistence. So there are 4 key learning objectives for today. Number 1 is being able to understand and explain the role of model objects and model controllers in MVC. Okay. Number 2, being able to make a class or struct conform to a protocol called Codable. Okay, and then you should be able to use FileManager to find system directories, for example, the documents directory, and then being able to use a PropertyListEncoder to save codable objects to a file. Okay, so to show you what we're going to be working on today, we are working on this app, and we're going to call it our stars app. Okay, so what we do is we can put in a star name and the distance in light years, and then we can hit create, and let's just see what happens here. Okay, so if I say like Barnard's star, it's 5.96 light years away. I can hit create. It populates the table view. Okay, but the most important thing that we're trying to accomplish today is that I can close the app, reopen it, and it's still there. Okay, so this is really cool because once you learn how to do this, now you guys can actually start like building useful apps, right? Now that you can actually start saving things. So so we'll have a lot of good key takeaways from today, and it will sort of help level you up as an engineer. Okay, so as always, let's go ahead and launch Xcode, and we're going to get started with a new project today. Okay, single view app. Let's go ahead and we're going to call this stars, iOSPT6, and hit next. Let's save it where we always save all of our stuff. So in our development folder, go ahead and hit create, and we're ready to go. And for those of you who, again, need a walkthrough of initializing a Git repository, it's always good to practice, right? So let's go ahead and let's launch terminal here. And I'm going to go into my, my stars project. Let's see here, CD development. Yeah, let's go into stars for, let's do this, iOSPT6. Okay, and as always, if we want to initialize a Git repository, we're going to do a git init. Okay, so we initialize that repository in that directory. Then we can go ahead and we can bring up GitHub. Click the plus button, new repository. Let's go ahead and call this stars, iOSPT6. Public is fine. Create this repository. Okay, and before I do either of those things, I'm going to do my initial commit. Okay, so I'm going to do git add period git commit -m initial commit. Okay, and then I'm going to copy and paste what we got from GitHub, and now I've pushed up my initial project up to GitHub. Okay, so you should be feeling pretty good getting the muscle memory there going for how to walk through this process. So again, git init, then you do git add period to stage everything, git commit -m initial commit, then you do the remote repository stuff. So you go into GitHub plus icon, and then you just copy and paste exactly what it tells you to in terminal, and then we're all connected and ready to go. Okay, so everyone have their projects set up and ready to go? Ready to roll? Okay, cool. So let's get started with setting up our views today. Okay. And I'm going to have you guys tell me what I need. So looking at my view here, what do I need for my app?
2 text fields, 2 buttons. You need a table view not a table view controller, but just a regular table view. And you got to embed that into a navigation controller, I believe. No, you do not.
Yeah, we won't need to today because we're not going to do any sort of detail view stuff.
Right.
If we were going to do a detail view, then we would. But yeah. Yeah, so 2 text fields, 2 buttons, and then a table view. Okay. So let's go ahead and we're going to hit our plus icon. We're going to search for some text fields. Okay, I'm going to create a copy of that. So we want 2 text fields. Didn't copy for some reason. 2 buttons. Okay. And then yes, we do want a table view. Cool. So now let's go ahead and start giving these some constraints. Okay. So again, these are probably all good candidates to be part of a stack view, right? Because we've got pretty much all of these are going to be stacked on top of each other, and then these are going to be stacked horizontally, right? So let's go ahead and stack these horizontally first. Okay, so I'm going to select both my buttons, the embed in, and we're going to embed these into a stack view. Okay, and now I'm going to select all 3 of them. Okay, and let's embed these into a stack view. Okay, and then on the stack view itself, let's go ahead and select our stack view, and let's change the alignment to be fill. Okay, the distribution can be fill. Spacing we can knock down, we can bump down to like 24, it's fine. Okay, and then let's grab the inner stack view that has my 2 buttons in it. And let's bump that spacing down to 24 as well. Okay, everyone good on the stack views? So we've got a horizontal stack inside of a vertical stack. Spacing, all of the alignment and distribution is set to fill, and the spacing is set to 24. Okay, so now that we've got our stack view, let's go ahead and give it some constraints here. I'm going to pin it 16 points from the leading edge, 16 points from the top edge, and 16 points from the trailing edge. Let's go ahead and add those 3 constraints. This stack view, sorry, in our horizontal stack view, where we've got our buttons, for the distribution, let's go ahead and change that to fill equally so that those will take up the same amount of space. Okay, so we're going to edit these different items here. So let's go ahead and grab our first text field and let's give it some placeholder text. We're going to call this star name. Let's grab our second text field, give it some placeholder text, distance in light years. For our first button, let's have it say print stars. And our second button is going to say create.
Hey, Johnny, what was that thing that you did a second ago? That you edited? I forgot what was it. I didn't quite catch that last thing you did right before you edited the text.
So on the horizontal stack view, you want to change the distribution to fill equally for the 2 buttons.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, and when you're caught up to this point, let's go ahead and have you raise your hand. Let's see, Michael and Rob, are you guys good? Cool. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and give our table view some constraints here. So we're going to click on our square TIE fighter. And let's go ahead and pin this. Let's have this be 16 points away from our stack view. And then we'll do 0 points from the leading and trailing edge, as well as the bottom. And then make sure to uncheck the constrain to margins. Otherwise, that's going to throw off your constraints. And then add 4 constraints. Okay, so if we want our table view to be able to go underneath the safe area here, let me go ahead and show you how we can do that again. Okay, so with the table view selected, I'm going to click on my size inspector. Okay, and I want to go to my bottom constraint. So right now it's aligning the bottom to the safe area. I'm going to go ahead and let's double click that. Okay, and it should bring you to this bottom alignment constraint menu here. And we want to align the table view's bottom equal to not the safe area dot bottom, but we're going to say the super view bottom. Okay, so that's going to update the constant, which is 34, right? So let's go ahead and change that to 0 so that we align it right to the edge of the super view. Okay, and now our table view is sitting underneath the home button. All right, so with our table view now, we want it to actually be able to display a list of stars, okay? And so we want to set up a prototype cell that's going to represent our different star objects. So with my table view selected, I'm going to click on my attributes inspector, and let's go ahead and bump the prototype cells up to 1, okay? So now we have 1 cell, and we're going to do a custom table view cell here. Just for practice, technically we could just use the subtitle built-in cell type, but just for practice, we're gonna do our own custom cell. Okay, so we're gonna have 2 labels. They're gonna be stacked on top of one another. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's drag in a UI label to our cell here. And then let's create a copy of it, put it right underneath. Okay, you can go ahead and leave the font size of the first one as the same, but let's bump the font size of the second one down to, let's go down to like 14. So our first label is going to represent a star name. So I'll just put that here just as reference so that I know what that label is ultimately going to show. And then this one is going to show our distance in light years. Okay, let's go ahead and embed those into a stack view, because again, they're going to be stacked right on top of one another. And then let's give it some constraints. So I want to go ahead and I want to center this horizontally in the container. So again, when we want to center something horizontally or vertically, We're not going to click on the square TIE fighter. We're going to click on the alignment constraint button, which just looks like the little bar graph button to the left of the TIE fighter. And let's go ahead and align this vertically in the container. Okay. And then so it knows where it needs to position itself on the y-axis, but we haven't told it, we haven't specified where it should be on the x-axis. Okay. So we're going to click our square TIE fighter again. And we're going to set this to 16 leading, 16 trailing. You're going to uncheck constrain to margins. And then add 2 constraints. Okay. Any questions up to this point? Okay, so let's resolve our error that we have here. Okay, so it's saying that my stack view, we haven't set like a specific, like a height constraint for the stack view, so it doesn't know exactly how tall it needs to be, right? Doesn't know how tall the cell needs to be. So what we can do is let's go ahead and click on our stack view, or sorry, our stack view on our table. We can set the alignment here to be fill is fine. Okay. And then it looks like that actually resolved my error. Okay, if you're good on the cell, if you're good configured, you've configured your cell and everything, let's go ahead and have you raise your hand so I can see where everyone's at. Are you guys starting to feel a little bit better with storyboards? I realize I'm going through it faster, but then faster than I usually do, but that's because, you know, hopefully at this point, like, it's pretty easy to follow along. You guys are getting kind of the muscle memory down. But also, if I need to slow down, just let me know if I'm going too fast.
Do we have to put a constraint for the labels in the custom cell inside the stack? Do we need to put a vertical constraint on them inside of the stack?
No, as long as we have the constraint set on the stack view, then we're good.
Okay, because it's saying they're giving me an error saying I don't have I'm missing constraint for the labels.
So if you click on the stack view that holds those labels, you want to set your alignment to fill. Do you have that set?
Yes.
Okay, and it's still giving you errors?
Yep.
What it probably is, let me click my cell here. Go ahead and try making your cell just a little bit bigger. Well, let's see. Now that's weird. I don't know why it resolved for me, but now, yeah. The problem is it's like it's not sure exactly how big the cell needs to be. So sometimes if you like resize the cell, it will resolve itself.
Okay, 'cause I made it smaller and the error disappeared.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey Johnny, can you go over that stack view again for the star names? Just because I didn't have that stuff as filled, and now it gave me the error that you originally started fixing.
Let's see. You're talking about this stack view here.
Yes, sir.
So you just want to make sure that you set the alignment to fill.
Mm-hmm. Once I did that, it gave me the error that you just fixed for the constraints. Like,
Oh,
it didn't
yeah.
give it to me.
Yeah, so usually you can fix that by just sort of like adjusting the size of the cell. So if you click on your cell and you like expand it a little bit, or what you can do is you can just give your stack view like a height constraint. So you can click on your stack view and click on the square TIE fighter and then just give it that height constraint that it has there. That works as well.
It doesn't matter like what number it sits on. Like it can stay whatever they provide. Like for our purposes.
Yeah, for today that's fine. And you know, we can maybe bump up like our spacing a little bit if we want. Again, that gives me the red error, which is fine. Like I'm not expecting it to cause us many issues, but I guess to fix it for everyone, let's just give it up. Let's just give that stack view a height constraint.
Thank you.
Okay. And then the last step with table view cells, remember whenever we're using a prototype table view cell, we need to give it an identifier, a reuse identifier. So we're going to click on our attribute inspector and we're going to call this our star cell. Okay, so our next step is going to be to wire everything up, right? So that we can then start coding. Okay, so we've created the storyboard, we're good there, but now we want to start wiring things up. We want to set subclasses and whatnot. So let's go ahead and let's click on our viewcontroller.swift file. Okay, and I'm going to right click on this and go to refactor, rename. So right click on the class name and then refactor, rename. And I'm going to click the plus icon so that it includes like the commented code in the refactor. And we'll call this our stars view controller. And then we're going to rename. Okay, let's go ahead and let's create a, well actually for today, let's go ahead and just do this. We're going to create a new class for our custom table view cell. So we're going to call this our star table view cell. Okay, and this is going to be a subclass of UI table view cell. Okay, and then I'm going to put a marker in here for our IB outlets. And I'm going to put a marker in here for my IB outlets as well. Okay, our stars view controller is also going to need to have some IB actions, right? So when we actually tap on the create button, when we tap on the print button, so I'm going to create a marker for IB actions. Okay, we also know that we're going to have to conform to the UI table view data source protocol. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and open up our main.storyboard here. Okay, and your view controller should already be, if you click on your view controller and go to your identity inspector, it should already be set to the stars view controller. That should have been included in our refactor. Okay, but now we need to click on our actual cell here And let's go ahead and set the class on the cell to be our star table view cell. Okay. So once that's connected, once we've set our star table view cell, I can start creating some IB outlets for our name label and our distance label. Okay. So let's control drag down into star table view cell. And we're going to call this our name label. Hit connect. Okay, hold on. Go ahead and do like a command B just to recompile everything. And call this our name label. Hit connect. And then we have our distance label. Connect. Okay, because those are the only two things that we have on our label. So we're good there. Those are the only two outlets that we need. Let's go ahead and create some outlets on our stars view controller. Okay, so I want to create an outlet for our table view. Okay, so I'm going to control drag to my table view. Let's call this table view. It's fine. Hit connect. Okay, but there's one really important step when it comes to having a table view on top of a view controller that we have not done yet. Does anyone remember what it is?
Set the table view as the data source.
So we want to set the view controller as the data source for the table view, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so to do that, let's control drag from our table view up to our view controller. Okay, and we're going to set our view controller as the data source for the table view. Cool.
Can you show me that again? I kind of got behind with the errors.
Yeah, so control drag from your table view up to your view controller. Okay, and then you want to make sure that you select the data source. So you want to set the view controller as the data source for the table view. Okay, and then we just need to create some outlets for our text fields, and then we need to create our IB actions for our buttons, okay? So let's go ahead and create one for our name text field. Text field, hit connect. And we've got our, did I click on the wrong thing? Yep, I did. Whoopsie. Name text field. That is not a text field. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so name. This. Let's try this again. Name text field. And then we've got our distance text field. Distance text field. Okay, and again, we want to create some IB outlets for our buttons. So let's drag those down to our IB actions marker. Okay, and you want to make sure that the connection type is set to action. Okay, and we're going to say print button tapped. That's going to be the name of this first action. And then let's do one for our create button tapped. Okay, so this is what you guys should have thus far.
So whenever I try to draw the drag the names down to the star table view outlet to make an IB action or IB outlet, it's still not working even after I did the Control B, but I have everything else that we did.
Okay, did you do Control B or Command B?
I think it was Command B because whatever you said, because it did the whole build process or succeeded whenever I
had
did
to
it.
close out on mine.
Oh, you had to close out?
Yeah, and reopen it, and everything was fine.
All right, let me do that real quick.
Okay, and if you are caught up to this point, let's go ahead and do just a quick commit. So I'm going to do git add period git commit -m. We'll say set up views and connections. Okay, and then so I'm going to push my changes up as well, and then I'm going to send a link here. So if anyone needs to download like the current checkpoint of our project, let me send you the link right now, and you can just clone it to your computer so that you can code along with us if you're not caught up to this point, okay? Okay. Cool. So there's that GitHub link. It should be public, so you can just click on that and download our current progress to your system. Hopefully you guys all have it, but just in case. Okay, did that work for you, Michael? Did that resolve itself?
Oh no, it's still not letting me drag it down.
Okay, do you want to share your screen real quick?
Sure.
Let's take a look. All right. So if you wouldn't mind, let's just click on your star cell. Up. That's your stack view right there. Okay, so you need to set the class on your cell first.
Oh, I was setting I kept renaming the stack. That's probably what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, they told me to check the name, and I was like, I did it. It was
Is that not auto-completing? Star. Oh, and you need to make sure that the class needs to be a subtype on line 35. It needs to be a subclass of UI table view cell.
there we go.
That's why it's not auto-completing for you. So now you should be able to go and do. There you go. Okay, and then did you make sure that the stack view hasn't set weird? Yeah, go ahead and remove that from the stack view. And then press enter. Cool. Okay, so now go ahead and try to control drag. There you go.
All right, thank you.
Cool, yep.
Oops.
Okay. All right. So let's take our break now. Before we get into like the coding piece of this, let's go ahead and take our break, and then we can get back into it. So let me give you guys 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and start working again.
Hey, Johnny,
Yeah.
get kind of a weird error here. I just noticed it popped up saying that the name label outlet from the star view controller to the UI label is invalid. Outlets cannot be connected to main storyboard.
That was your outlet from what to what?
Name label outlet and distance label outlet.
So name and distance should be in your star table view cell class.
Yeah, okay, give me a second. Let me just take a,
Okay.
I won't bother you for a second here. Let me just see if I can just track this. Just showed up.
Okay.
Star view controller. Cell, yeah. Label. Label. Bar table view. Text field. Outlet.
Do you want me to take a look again? You want to share your screen? So you're not sure if you're talking to me. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Every time I click on the unmute, it keeps jumping off of it. There we
Oh,
go.
that's weird.
All right. Yeah, it's been frustrating. All right, let me see. And there we go. And let's try desktop 2. Oh my goodness. I have to open system preferences.
Okay.
Check. Now it's telling me I'm going to have to jump out of Zoom in order to allow it. Okay, let me hop out. I'll be right back in.
Okay.
Hey, Johnny.
Yeah.
Over the reading that we were doing, that was for today. One of the things that I was curious about when we develop our apps and we put it into the phone, one of the things that it was making clear that our apps don't have the ability to access like the iOS files, like the directories. So is each app kind of self-contained in a way? When I'm thinking about like the way how the file directories are set up.
Yeah. So they'll be self-contained. They each have their own container. So you can't like access like the files from other apps.
Okay. Is it like a safety mechanism, I guess, that Apple implemented.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they kind of they silo everything so that you can't so that like one app can't go and like steal all of your data from another app. Is the idea behind it.
So is it like it isn't like a firewall or something like that, right? Like I'm limited in my knowledge with that, but that's what I like thought of first was a firewall. It's nothing like that though, correct?
No, they're just separate containers.
Okay.
All right, Ian, let's take a look. Okay, so you have your star table view cell. Okay, so your name label and your distance label, those need to be inside of your class declaration for star table view cell.
Oh, just location. Gotcha. Okay. Okay. All right. I'll fix those then. Thanks.
Yep. Let's see. Bring the share back here. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead then, and we know that as part of this application, we want the main object that we're going to be working with is a star object. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's create our model so that we can start using it throughout our app. Okay, so I'm going to click on my stars folder here. We're going to go to new file. This is going to be a Swift file. Okay, and let's just call this star.swift. Okay. Okay, can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I just had like the little Zoom thing come up that said my internet connection was unstable, so just want to make sure. All right, so we're going to create a new struct here for a star object. Okay. We want to have two properties, name of type string, and then a distance of type double. And that's all that we need for our model right now. Okay. But one of our learning objectives, if I pull up my keynote here, is you should be able to make a class or struct conform to Codable. Okay. Well, let's talk about what is Codable. Okay. Does anyone remember from the reading what Codable is when we say that something is codable?
It's able to be saved.
Okay.
Like coded and then decoded, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that can be like sort of transformed into data that can then be saved. Okay, so we have two keywords here, and you said them both, right? We have encode, which means going from our object to data. Okay, and then we have decode, which is going to be the opposite. Okay, which is going to go from data to our object. Okay, so when we say that an object is codable, we're saying that we want to allow this object to be able to be turned into data and then be able to like be turned back into the object. Okay, and I'll show you the documentation here. So Command-Shift-0 to bring up Apple's documentation, and let me show you Codable here. Okay. Okay, so Codable, a type that can convert itself into and out of an external representation. Okay, so Codable is like a combined type alias for decodable and encodable. So we just say it's codable, which means that we can decode and encode it. Okay, so Codable is a type alias for encodable and decodable protocols. When you use Codable as a type or a generic constraint, it matches any type that conforms to both the protocols. Okay, so decodable, a type that can decode itself from an external representation. Encodable, a type that can encode itself into an external representation. Okay, so to make our star object codable, Done. That's all you have to do. Okay? That's how we conform to the Codable protocol. So we just say this object is codable. Pretty easy. Okay, any questions about that?
Are we going to add anything else to that, Johnny, once you make it codable?
Nope, that's it. I mean, we're going to have to do stuff to actually encode it and decode it, but that's all that we need to do to conform to the Codable protocol. Okay, so we've got our model object, okay, and it's saved in this model folder here. So next we're going to talk about what's called a model controller, okay? And before I get into this, I want to talk a little bit about this MVC architecture, okay, which again stands for models, views, and controllers. Okay, so model, view, controller. Just a model, view, controller. Okay, and this is a way of structuring our app that we sort of have. We have our model, which is like our main object type. We have our views, which are actually in charge of like displaying data. And then we have our controller, who sort of acts as a middleman that knows about our objects, but then is also responsible for managing like our data set, managing all of the different objects that we have, okay? So let's go ahead and let's right click on our folder here. And I'm gonna go to new file. We're gonna do a new Swift file here. And we're gonna call this our stars controller. Okay, I'm gonna hit create here. And we want to put this into its own group. So I'm gonna do new group from selection. And I'm gonna call this controller. I guess more specifically, model controller. Okay, so up to this point, whenever we've been working with table views, we've usually just created like an array literal, or we created like an array of objects on the table view itself, okay? That is not a good principle of MVC, okay? We didn't want to introduce model controllers too early. So we have just on our table view, we create an array of objects, and then we, and then we say, array.count for the number of rows and blah, 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 okay? But really what you want to do is all of your data should be managed and stored inside of this, this object called a model controller, okay? So let's go ahead and we're going to create a new class here for our star controller. Okay, so one of the first things that you want to have in your star controller is your data set, okay? The star controller is going to be the one source of truth, okay? We don't want to be like creating a bunch of weird arrays everywhere and then trying to like keep them in sync. So we're going to have just one single array of star objects as part of my star controller. And then that's the array that we want to access throughout our entire app, okay? So star controller is going to house your data set, your one source of truth, okay? The star controller is also responsible for what we call our CRUD functions, okay? And that's just a silly acronym for create, read, update, and delete, okay? So it also has all of the functions that are responsible for creating your objects, reading your objects, updating your objects, and deleting your objects, okay? So it has the CRUD functions, and then it is also going to be our place where we have our persistence functions, okay? We need to be able to save. We also need to be able to load, okay? So these are the general things that you're going to find in a model controller: is your data set, your CRUD functions, and then your persistence functions, so saving and loading. Okay, we're only going to use our create function today, okay? But just remember that like the CRUD stuff goes into your model controller. Okay, so first off, let's go ahead and give this our data set. Let's go ahead and we're gonna say private set var stars. Okay, and it's going to be an array of star objects. And let's go ahead and give this an initial value of an empty array.
Wait, what does the private set do?
So the private set means that my stars array can only be accessed, well, not accessed, but only accessed to set inside of this controller itself, right? So I can't say, you know, star controller dot stars equals this anywhere else except for inside of this class. Okay, because we don't want any external files to be able to modify or mess up our one source of truth, right? We need to follow a process that's the way that we add stars is through a create function. Okay, so instead of just like creating like a random star and then like adding it to my array and some other view controller, the model controller is sort of the brain that's going to be in charge of managing my data source. Okay, and so we're sort of blocking that access control, saying, hey, the stars array is mine, like nobody touches it except for me, right? So that's what the private set is it's saying you can only set it, that the star controller is the only thing that's allowed to set the stars array. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's do func create star. Okay. This is going to be, we'll do with name of type string, and we'll do distance of type double. Okay, and let's make it so this function can return a star object. Okay, but more importantly, what this function is meant to do is it's meant to write that star to our stars array. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's say let star equal star, and we're going to call our star initializer. We'll pass in our name and our distance, okay? And then if I want to write that star to my array, what do I need to do? How do I get it into here?
Star to append new element of star.
Yeah, so we want to append that star. Okay, so let's call stars.append. We're going to append our star object. Okay, and then we did say that this is going to return a star. So we'll go ahead and return our star object. Okay, does everyone have this, the create function?
Quick question. Why did you put with before the name and the distance on that top of the function there?
That just gives me more context when I actually call the function.
Just a note for yourself later, or like, is it just for you?
No, so it's the way that you'll like, here, watch this. Self.create star, okay? So what it's doing is it's just saying, like, that's gonna be my, what we call our like external parameter name, okay? So, you know, whatever I set there, if I get rid of the width, then that updates my initializer to just do, you know, create star with name, right? And so really it's just sort of modifying what the external parameter looks like for me. So it's really just like a semantic thing that adds clarity. This is fine too if you just do just name and distance.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Johnny, I'm having a little bit of trouble. I'm not able to access star for some reason. Like I typed everything you did, but I think I made a mistake, but I can't find that mistake.
You're not able to access what?
The star, so like let star equals star name. So I think it's the star Swift file. I'm able to access that
Okay.
array.
Do you have your star model?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then here, let's just have you share your screen. Let's see what's going on.
So when I originally did this, for some reason, this was showing up as something else. Let me see. Ugh.
Okay, just do stars there. Okay, and you want to give it an initial value of an empty array. So you're going to say, so after that, after the brackets, you're going to do equals, open, closing bracket.
Oh, okay. Because it should, this is what we're pulling, right?
Yeah, go ahead and do a command B. Okay. Func create star. Okay, so you need a return type on line 17. After your arrow, you need to return a star. Capital star, the type. Then add a space.
Oh.
Okay, then do a command B. Cool.
Sweet, thank you.
Yep. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go over to our stars view controller. Okay, let's fill out the code in our cell really quick. Okay, so we're gonna have a variable for a star object. Okay, let's add our did set. We'll just, and you guys have seen this before, right? We've got our like update views function that's going to set our name label and distance label with the name and the distance from our star, right? Okay. So in our did set, we're going to call self.updateViews. Okay, and then in update views, we're going to guard let star equals star, otherwise return, right? If we don't have a star, we don't want to try and update the labels with nil, right? So if we have a star, then we can set our name label dot text is equal to star dot name, and then our distance label dot text is going to be equal to, and let's just do some interpolation. Let's pass in star dot distance light years away. Okay, any questions concerning this, the update views, the did sets?
Can you just explain what did set means?
Yeah, so the did set is just providing us a place that's saying when the value of star is set, then call update views. Right, so when our table view cell actually has an assigned star, then we want to update the name label and the distance label with that star's information. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. So let's go to our stars view controller here. Okay. And we want this to conform to the protocol UI table view data source. Okay. And we'll put those methods down here. Okay, so can anyone remind me, what are the two required methods for UI table view data source?
Number of rows.
Yep, so number of rows. Okay, and then what's the other one?
Cell for row.
at.
Cell for row at. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so remember what we normally do, what we've done up to this point is we've had to, we created like an array on our view controller itself, and we used that array.count. Okay, well, what object is sort of the manager of all of our data?
Stars controller.
Our stars controller. Okay, so we're going to say let stars controller equal, and we're going to create a new instance of our star controller. Okay, so with our star controller then, how many rows do we want to have? What should we return here?
Is it cell.count?
Would it be star controller.count?
So we have our star controller, but star controller itself is not an array, right? It's an object, right? So we want to get the count of what in our stars controller?
Stars.
Stars.
Yeah, see, we have our stars array, okay? So we want to access star controller dot stars dot count. Okay, let's go ahead and let's create our table view cell. So we're going to say guard let cell equal self.tableview.dq reusable cell with identifier star cell. Okay, and we want to conditionally downcast that as our star table view cell. Okay. Otherwise, let's return UI table view cell. Okay, why do I need to do the conditional downcast here?
To be able to access those properties inside that class.
Yeah, so to be able to access the star property, right? Because UI table view cell itself does not have any property on it called star, but our subclass of UI table view cell does, okay? So let's go ahead and let's set that. So now that we've got our cell, let's get our star, okay? And again, we're accessing our stars through our star controller. So our star, instead of doing, stars index path dot row, right? We're gonna access that through the star controller. So star controller dot stars at index path dot row. Okay, and with that we can set cell dot star equals star. Okay, and then that's when the did set is going to get called, right? As soon as we set cell dot star, right, the did set is going to get called and it's going to update the views and update our name label and our distance label. Okay, when you're caught up to this point, let's go ahead and have you raise your hand.
So I don't know why, but when I create a star controller object, it says that I use of unresolved identifier of the star control. But I do have the class.
Okay.
So I don't know why the export won't let me to do it.
Interesting. Let's take a quick look. Do you want to share your screen with me?
Yeah.
Let's see. Go to your stars controller. Class star controller. Okay. All right. Go back to your star view controller. What in the world?
Hey, Johnny, mine's doing the same thing.
Okay. Go ahead and backspace on line 19. Just backspace to star controller. So don't delete the whole thing. Just backspace to your equals sign.
His model controller is stars controller, and he's trying to instantiate star controller.
It looked like his class was called star controller. So Bowden, just backspace the star controller and the parentheses.
Wait, what?
So go back to where the error is, okay, and click on line 18. Click the end of line 18. Okay, and then backspace. Keep going. Okay, and then just start typing star.
Yeah, it won't even finish that.
Yeah, why is... Okay, do the closing parenthesis on line 18, just close that off. And yeah, let's finish fixing the other error that you have. So in cell for row at, it looks like you're still missing some of the implementation there. Yeah, let me send you that code snippet. Let's see.
The thing that the autocomplete even doesn't work.
Here, go ahead and copy and paste the thing I just sent on our Slack channel.
Okay.
And then just, yeah.
Thank you.
What does that error say?
Start
Star.
table.
Oh, looks like you have star table view cell spelled wrong on line 49. Should be Table. But you can just update it up there. It's fine. Yeah. You'll need to make sure you go and you update the class name in your storyboards as well.
Okay.
Okay, so
Alright,
try and
thank you.
do a Command B again. Okay, cool.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Xcode's just being weird because
Yeah.
it built just fine. I don't know why it's showing you that error.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions about our implementation of these data source methods? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's fill out our IB action here for when the create button is tapped. Okay, so when the user hits create, we want to create a star object, right? So let's go ahead and first we want to like parse the user input, right? So we're going to say guard let star name equal name text field dot text. Okay. I also want to parse the distance in light years. Let distance in light years equal our distance text field dot text. But we also want to make sure that that can properly be converted to a double value, right? Actually, sorry, let's get the text first and then we can validate whether it's a double later. So the distance text field dot text and then let's validate that the distance can properly be converted into a double value. So we'll do distance in light years. Okay, and then let's also make sure that star name is not empty. Okay, so if any of these fail, then we're just going to return. Okay, we're not going to create a new star object. Okay. So now that we have all of that, remember we don't want to create stars ourselves because we want to run everything through the through our star controller, right? So let's go ahead and let's call star controller dot create star and pass in our star name and our distance. Okay. And here we have an error. Well, not an error, a warning that I want to discuss. But I don't want to discuss it until everyone's caught up. So let's have you raise your hand when you've got your create button method filled out.
Hey Johnny, I hate to ask you this, but it's not allowing me to access create stars with the argument name again. Reason.
Okay, so if you do star controller dot, what do you see?
Let me see. Distance light year. Is that? I think it might be because I have star controller uppercase.
Yeah, that would be the issue.
Now it still comes up as distance, distance in lightning, distance text field, double, and then when I try to bring up create stars, it doesn't come up. The only thing that comes up is create button tabs and created.
So you're probably not accessing your star controller. You're probably trying to access your star view controller.
Okay. The odd thing about it though, when I do type it up, it doesn't give me the indication of which one I am bringing up because it comes up with like 3 different ones that are named the same one.
So you want it, whatever you have up here, your instance of your star controller, that's what you want to use.
Okay, so that's going to be the problem there because I couldn't get that to work. I was going to just ask you later. Hopefully it wasn't going to break anything, but I think that's going to be the majority of the issue. For some reason, it's giving me a unresolvable identifier, a star controller.
Okay, so if you go over to your model controller, here, let's just have you share your screen. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so go to your model controller. Okay, so yours is called stars controller instead of star controller, which is fine, but you just need to make sure that you use the class name like that you created, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the reason that you're, just go ahead and finish filling out the function below, and then that will probably resolve itself. So go ahead and do star controller. No.
Oh no, it'll be this one.
And access your instance of star controller. And then, yeah, your autocomplete's not working for some reason. Try and do like a command B. Okay, and then star controller. You might need to restart Xcode. It doesn't look like your autocomplete's working. There you go. So pass in your star name and your distance.
The name?
No, your star name. Yeah, there you go.
And then you said distance?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, let me steal the screen share back here. Okay, so right now we're getting this warning that's saying result of call to create star name distance is unused, okay? So if we look over at our stars view controller, or our star controller, sorry, we can see that our create star method returns a star object, okay? Which is good, like, which is useful if for some reason we need to do something with the star. But if we don't need to do anything with the star, then we have those warnings, which is kind of annoying, right? So we have something that is called kind of this discardable result prefix, okay? So before my function name, I'm going to do @discardable result. Okay. And what this means is it's saying I can call this function and do something with the return, like with the return object, or we can just discard it. Okay. So this is just saying the result of this function that is to return a star is discardable. Like I'm fine to just throw it away. Like I may not need it for anything, right? Because this function, its primary purpose is to append my new star to my stars array, okay? But there may be some cases where I actually want to like return the star and do something with it later, right? And so I'm sort of giving myself that flexibility of like, like your primary functionality is to append that star to the array, but then also go ahead and return the star, okay? If I want to do something with it, I can. If I don't, then go ahead and just discard it, okay? So that's what the @discardable result is, okay? So now if I build, that warning goes away because I'm not doing anything with the return that I'm getting back from the star, right? I'm not doing anything with the return star, so I'm just discarding it. Okay. Anyway, I'm not like too concerned about you knowing like how to use that, but that is available to you. Okay. So let's go ahead then, and after we create our star, we need to update our table view, right? So we're going to call self.tableview.reload data because we want to reload the data with our new updated data. Okay. So self.tableview.reload data. Okay, and at this point, we should be able to run. So let's go ahead and run it. We should be able to start adding some stars. Okay, so star name, let's do test star, distance in light years, 1.32. You can hit the create button. We should see our table view populate. Okay, if yours is working as expected, let's go ahead and have you raise your hand. And if it's not, let's figure out what's going on. Okay, so if I rerun the app, this is our problem that we're trying to solve, right? Is that I rerun the app, my star is gone, right? We cleared everything out. So that array is being like reinitialized as an empty array, and we no longer have any of our star objects. Okay, so now I want to talk about how we can actually save and load up our data. Okay, so this is all going to be done back in our model controller, because remember that's where our CRUD functions and then our save and load functions are going to be. Okay, so let's hop over to our star controller. We're going to spend some time in this save area that we created for ourselves.
Hey, Johnny, sorry, my app crashes when I hit the create button. I was trying to figure out what it was, but I couldn't.
Okay, it's crashing when you hit the create button.
Yeah.
All right, let's do a little debug session, see what's going on. If you want to share your screen. Okay, and what does it say in the console is the reason that it crashed? Oh, never mind, that's all right.
I'll show you.
Okay, scroll up for me. Okay, so this class is not key value coding compliant for the key distance label. Okay, so what it most likely is that you set up some sort of outlet, like possibly on your main.storyboard that no longer exists. Okay, so let's look at if you just click on the view controller as a whole and then go to your outlet inspector. Let's see, we've got our distance text field. Okay, that's good. Table view. Okay, and then let's click on your cell, on your star cell. Okay, so you can see those warnings right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like those don't have any outlets set up for them. So maybe just, if you go back to your storyboard, just hit the little X button next to those and then reconnect them to their outlets.
Okay, I'll give it a try.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about persistence. Okay, so I'm going to create a mark here. Persistence. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to need to do, we're going to need to have in order to have some persistence in our app, is we need to have a specific URL in the app's file manager that we're going to write and read data from. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a computed property. We're going to do private var persistent file URL. Okay, so this is going to be the URL or the file path to where we're going to write our data to. Okay, so again, remember a computed property just allows us to create a property that we can like run a like the value of that property is dependent upon a computation, right, or a specific calculation. Okay, so this persistent file URL, let's go ahead and let's access the system's file manager. Okay, so we're going to say let fm, which is just short for file manager, equal FileManager.default. Okay, go to the default file manager. That's how you're always going to access it. You just have to remember that. Okay, next we want to get our directory. Okay, so we're going to say guard let directory equal file manager, and then we're going to ask the file manager for all of the URLs inside of its documents directory inside of the user domain mask. Okay, and really we just care to get back the first one that it gives us back. Okay, otherwise we're going to return nil. Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about. So let's pretend that this Finder window is like our app's container, okay? And what we're saying is we want to write to this documents directory in the users directory, okay? So this is going to be the equivalent of Johnny Hicks is my user directory. This is my user domain mask. And I want to go to, I don't have a documents folder in here, but let's pretend I did, saying we want to write inside of the development folder, okay? Okay, so that's what we're doing, is we're saying, hey, the directory we want to write to is the documents directory in the user directory, or the user domain mask. Okay, and that's really what it's always going to be. Okay, so just writing to the documents directory in the user domain mask. Okay, so now we need to add a new file in that directory that's going to be a plist file, okay, of type plist. So what we're going to do is we're going to return our directory.appending path component, okay, appending path component. So this returns a URL constructed by appending the given path component to self. Okay, and we're going to do stars.plist. Okay, so that's going to create a plist file, a stars.plist file inside of that, that directory. Okay, so we want to access the documents directory in the user's domain. Okay. And then we want to create a new plist file in that directory. Okay, so for example, like if I wanted to do, you know, if I'm in my development folder and I want to do like echo johnny.txt, right, that would create a new txt file inside of my development directory, okay? So similarly, right, when we do this directory.appending path component, it's creating a .plist file there, okay? You know, if I wanted to do a txt file, I could. Stars.txt, PDF, JSON, right? We're just simply giving it, we're creating like a new file at that URL. Okay, in our case, because we want to be able to write to a plist file, it's going to be of type plist, so stars.plist. Okay, so let's get into our save method here. Okay, let's call private func save to persistent store. Okay, let's make sure that we know what URL we're going to be writing to. So we're going to say guard let URL equal persistent file URL, otherwise return. We don't want to save anything if we don't have a place to write our data to. Okay, the next thing is we want to create what's called a do try catch block. Okay, and I'll show you what this is in just a sec. Well, actually, I'll show you doing it without it, and then I'll show you why we need it. Okay, so what we want to do when we want to save to our persistent store, we want to turn our star object into data. Okay, and then we want to write that data to our new plist file. Okay, so part of saving is turn object into data, write data to file. Okay, so what we need to do is we're going to first create an encoder object. Okay, so let encoder equal PropertyListEncoder. Okay, and then we're going to say let data equal try, and well, actually, I'm going to omit the try for a second. I'm going to call encoder.encode, okay? And if you look at the autocomplete here, you can see that this, this method throws an error, okay? What that means is that it will allow me the opportunity to capture that error that it throws if for some reason there was an issue turning my object into data. Okay. So whenever you're trying to autocomplete and you see that this is a method that throws, it needs to be in what's called a do, try, catch block. Okay. So do, and then we've got a catch here. Okay. And so let's go ahead and let's just grab both of these, and we're going to put these inside of the do. Okay. And here for data, we're going to say, okay, try to encode this. Okay. Try to encode our stars array. Okay. If for some reason it can't do it, then we're going to capture it in our catch block. Okay, so we're going to log, we'll do nslog error saving stars data. Interpolate the error that it throws. Okay, if we do successfully turn our stars array into data, let's go ahead and call, we're going to try data.write. And again, you can see that throws there again, right? Data.write, right? And so anything that throws an error, you have to put a try before it. It's saying, hey, try to do this. Otherwise, if it fails, it's going to fall into our catch block, okay? So write to our URL. And that's it, okay? I know that's a lot of new stuff. Okay, it just requires just practice and doing it, right? Okay. So again, here we're trying to go from our stars array to data and write to plist file.
Johnny, what's the whole purpose of try again? Right before like the encoder, is it almost like a guard?
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking of it. It's like a guard that's saying, hey, try to do this, and then if you can't, then catch that error and let me know what went wrong. Right? So it allows us to do some nice error logging instead of things just not working. It's going to tell us what issue it ran into.
Would it show it, like, say, would this be similar to like the app crashing, or just not return, like a 404 error, something like that on the app?
Yeah, so you'll use these a lot, like when you get into the networking unit, where you're gonna, a lot of the times when you're doing like a network request, you have to do a try, right? Because you're saying, hey, try and make this network request, but if for some reason you can't, then let me know about it in this catch. But if you ever try to do anything without a try that throws an error, it's going to warn you. Okay? Can call throw, but is not marked with a try. Okay? So it'll let you know when you need to put try before it. Okay? And something that is new, if you don't want to do the do try catch block, you can do try optional. So you could do like if you did this, then it's not required to be in a do try catch block. So it will just optionally try. The problem with that though is that if you don't have a do try catch block, then you don't actually get to see why it went wrong. Okay. So that's what's nice about the do try catch block, is it gives you the option to log why something didn't work.
Why wouldn't you prefer to like, why would you give yourself that option? Like, wouldn't it be best to always do that catch?
Yeah, it is. So it's available. Doing like try optional is available, but I would always prefer do try catch block. Okay, so that's saving data. So loading data is just, we're gonna sort of reverse engineer this, okay? So let's create a new function called private func load from persistent store. Okay. So let's go ahead and we're going to access our file manager. Okay, so let fm equal FileManager.default. Okay, let's make sure we've got our URL. So we're going to guard let URL equals persistent file URL. Not only that though, we want to make sure that a file actually exists at our URL's file path. Okay, otherwise return. There's no point in trying to load from a file that doesn't actually exist. At path URL, sorry, URL.path. Okay, so now here's where we want to reverse engineer it, where we're going from our plist. Well, I mean, really, we're going from like the plist to data, the plist file. Remember, when it comes out of the plist, it's data. Okay, and we want to turn it back into our stars objects. Okay, so just the opposite of this, right? We go to array, data, plist. Now we're going plist, data, array of stars. Okay, so let's create a do try catch block again. Catch. And inside of the do, we're going to get our data from our plist file. Okay, so we're going to try data. Give me all of the contents of the file at my URL. Okay. Then we want to create a decoder object of type, and this is going to be an instance of PropertyListEncoder. Okay. And we're going to set self.stars equal to try decoder.decode. And we want to decode it into an array of star objects. So we're going to do star.self from data. Okay, and in our catch block, let's go ahead and log and say, hey, we had some errors loading the stars data. And we'll interpolate our error.
And where would that NS log show up? It would show up in the app saying that there was an error?
So it wouldn't show up to the user, but we would see it down here in our, in our little console window.
And there's no way, well, I guess you could probably put a label in there and have it throw an error on that label, right?
Yeah, like you could present like an alert controller. So I mean, you can do whatever you want inside of the catch block, right? It's not just for logging. You could present the user with something. You could even call like fatal error and crash the app if you wanted to, right? Like it's just giving you a block where you can add code of like what you want to happen in the case that you can't load the stars up.
Okay.
Okay. So again, I know that this is a lot, guys, but just take some time to go through these two methods and try to like put like down in your mind of like, what is the process for saving and the process for loading? But this is it. This is how we actually need, we'll need to actually call these functions, but this is all that you need to do to write and read the data, okay? So with both of these set, and I want to walk you through the breakpoints so we can see step by step of what's happening, okay, with our last 12 minutes. So we want to call save, okay, whenever a star is created. Okay, so let's go to our create star method. As soon as we append a new star to our stars array, let's call self.save to persistent store. Okay. And we're just going to rewrite the entire contents of our stars array to the file. Okay, we're not appending to the file. We're simply taking the value of stars array and we're overriding. We're going to write over what's currently in our plist file with the new updated array. Okay. So now we need a time that we actually call our load from persistent store. Okay, a good time to do that is let's load up the persistent store as soon as our star controller is created. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to write our initializer method here. We don't have any parameters. Let's go self.load from persistent store. Okay, so as soon as our star controller is initialized, which is on the star table view controller, right? As soon as star controller is initialized, let's load up our data from our persistent store. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set some breakpoints here. Okay, so that we can watch. This isn't like magic, right? Like this is all a process. And so I want to kind of walk you through what the process looks like. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run it. Okay, we hit our breakpoint. Okay, and the reason is because we initialized our star controller. Okay, so now it's going to call and say, okay, let's check and see if there's any data. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into this function and let's walk through it step by step. Okay, so it's checking our file manager, it's checking our URL. Okay, and let's actually look. What is the current URL? PO URL. Okay, so this is the URL, something crazy long, right? Users, Johnny Hicks, library, developer, core simulator, devices, and then the device ID, and then data, application. But then here's the documents dot, and then stars.plist. Okay. Okay, so we've got our URL. Okay. And if I go to terminal here, and I copy this URL, and I try to open it, it's saying, hey, that file doesn't exist, okay? So we would expect that we're gonna fall out of this return here because we don't have a file there yet because we haven't actually written anything there. Okay, so I'm gonna step over, okay? And we didn't load anything up, right? Because there's nothing there, okay? Okay, cool. So there's the load in action, and we'll rerun it after we've saved something. Okay, so let's go ahead and do. We've got Johnny's star. We'll say that it's 1.23 light years away. Okay, so now I'm going to hit create. Okay, and it's going to hit my breakpoint. We're creating a star. Okay, so we create our star object. We append it to my stars array, and then I'm calling save. Okay, so let's jump in there and see what's happening. Okay. So inside of save, we're making sure that we have a URL, which we do. So then we get into this encoder. So we create our encoder. We encode the value of our stars array, and then we write it to that URL. Okay. And then I didn't fall into the catch block, so it means it was successful, right? No errors were thrown, so it was successful. Okay, if I actually go into terminal now and I try to open up that same file, looky here. Here's our stars.plist file. It's got Johnny's star distance 1.23. Okay, this is what a plist file looks like, right? You've seen plists in Xcode and whatnot. A plist just simply has this entry here of our key value pairs. Okay, so we've got name, Johnny star, distance, 1.23. This is saved in that plist. Okay. Okay, any questions about saving and what's happening here? Okay, the only reason that I can actually see this on my computer is because I'm running it on the simulator. you generally can't open up like the phone's file system through terminal, right? I can only open it because simulator is part of my computer, and so it shares the same file system. So that's the only reason I can like go in and inspect the plist file. Okay, so this is what we just wrote to, okay? And this is at like our file path, our persistent file URL has this plist file, okay? So we'll go ahead and I'll hit continue here. Okay, so I got Johnny star. So let's go ahead and rerun the app. Okay, and now we're calling load, okay? So let's jump into my load here. We access our file manager, our URL. We check, hey, does a file exist at this path? Okay. Well, I know that it does, right? Because I just barely had it open, right? So I'm going to step over this. Okay. And so now it's like, hey, we found the file. So what we want to do is we want to turn that plist data into actual star objects. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get the data out of the file. We're going to decode it through our decoder into an array of stars, right? So I create my decoder, then I'm going to try setting my stars array equal to the decoded value of that data, from that data, right? So we didn't fall into our catch block, so we're safe to assume that it was successful. So I'll just hit continue here, and we see that Johnny star has persisted across launches. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a quick commit here. Okay, so git add period, git commit, added persistence to the app. Okay, I'm going to push those changes out. Okay, cool. We're almost out of time. I'll stay after for questions, but I want to make sure that we close out the right way. Okay, so learning objectives, key takeaways for today. You should be able to understand and explain the role of model objects and the model controller. Okay, so remembering those CRUD functions, the save and the load, and then being able to have that sort of as your source, your data source, or your one source of truth. Okay, you should be able to make a class or struct conform to Codable. That was nice and easy, right? You just put the colon and then Codable after your struct name, and that's done. Okay, number 3, you should be able to use the file manager to find system directories, right? So being able to create and generate that persistent file URL through looking for the documents directory inside of the user domain mask. Okay, and then number 4, you should be able to use a property list encoder, and I should say and decoder, to save and load codable objects to and from a file. Okay, so those are the key takeaways. If you're feeling good, then you're welcome to go ahead and get started on your homework, okay? And we'll see you next week. But I will stay, so the rest of the time is up to you guys if you want to ask questions, if you need me to review anything. But I want to make sure you feel pretty good about this before you get to your homework, okay?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What if you wanted to clear out the data you saved? Do you just delete the file that was created?
Yeah, you could do that. The file will be deleted as soon as your app is deleted. Or what you could do is you could like write an empty array to it or something. But yeah, you can, I mean, there are certain things you could do to delete that certain file path if we needed to.
Oh. Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep. Okay, what other questions you guys have?
We doing anything with the print button?
No, not today. We ran out of time. All we were really going to do is just print out a bunch of stuff to the console, but it's not part of the learning objectives, so I didn't want to take any extra time to do it.
I'm sorry, shouldn't be saving the name of the star after we closing the app or not? When we
Yeah, it should be saving the entire star object.
Okay, because it doesn't save for me and I have no errors for some reason.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen? Let's take a look. Okay. So are you calling your load from persistent store method? Where are you calling that?
It's right here.
Okay, good. All right, just wanted to check. Okay. It doesn't look like you're actually saving anything though. So after you append a star, so after line 23, you want to call save. So yeah, press enter and then call save to persistent store.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
well,
That wasn't loading anything because we never saved anything.
Gotcha. Okay. I see.
Nice.
All right. Thank you. Sweet.
Yep. Nice work.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, guys. What else? What else you got for me?
My app seems to crash when I load it up. I'm researching the error, but I can't really pinpoint it.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Okay, so
number of rows in section. Okay, so go to your number of rows in section, star controller.stars.count. Okay, that looks right. So it's just as soon as you load it up, it's doing that? Okay, go to your star controller for me. Okay, and go to your load method.
it was doing this before we got to this point too.
Like it was doing it before we were saving and loading?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. Okay, go back to your main.storyboard and let's right click on your view controller.
Right here?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, you've set yourself up as the data source. I mean, has it been crashing since the beginning, or do you know like at what point it?
Pretty much right before we went to save and load.
Okay, try like go into simulator and let's delete the stars app.
Okay.
So if you hit the home button, it's right up top on that top menu bar. There's a little home, like a little house icon.
Okay. Zoom is getting in the way. Okay.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, and then just hold down, like click and hold, and then hit the, yeah, there we go. Yeah, let's just do a fresh install.
And close it.
You don't need to. Just rerun the app in Xcode. Okay. All right, so it's nothing to do with data stores or anything. Unrecognized selector sent to instance. Go to your, sorry, go back to your storyboard for me. Click on your view controller and then click on your outlets inspector. What? Here says the data source, you have an outlet to your table view. And then if you go to, go back to your stars view controller. And you're conforming to the table view data source up top. Oh, no, you're not.
Okay. Just here.
Yeah, just comma UI table view data source.
And then rerun it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, anything else? All right, guys. Well, if there's nothing else, then we'll close down the Zoom and we'll plan on seeing you guys next week. Sound good?
Yep, sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Have a good night, guys. We'll see ya.